The town of Willow Creek, nestled in the rolling hills of South Carolina, was the kind of place where time moved slowly, where old men sat on porches and sweet tea was a form of hospitality and therapy. It was the place Carrie Willman had spent her youth trying to forget, and yet, at 41, she found herself drawn back to it like a tide to the shore. Her marriage had died a quiet, resentful death in a sleek Manhattan apartment, and her wedding planning business, though successful, suddenly felt hollow. She spent her days crafting perfect beginnings for couples while hers had ended in silence. Carrie had changed. No longer the awkward, overlooked girl with braces and frizzy hair. She had grown into elegance with a kind of grace that only pain could shape. But no matter how many designer heels she wore or high-profile weddings she curated, a part of her still lived in the shadows of Willow Creek High School, where she was known as Scary Carrie, the girl people laughed at, ignored, or tormented. And none laughed louder back then than Justin Cooper. Justin had been everything she wasn't: golden, athletic, charming, the kind of boy who could make teachers melt and girls cry. And Carrie, she was just another locker to bang into, another name to scrawl across the bathroom wall. But time had worked its alchemy on Justin too. At 42, he ran a modest but thriving organic farm in the very soil his family had tilled for generations. He lived a simple life: sunrises, dirt under fingernails, long talks with God on the porch swing. And though he had married young, love had quietly leaked out of his marriage like water from a cracked jar. Carrie came back to Willow Creek in late autumn, when the trees were aflame with color and the town smelled of cinnamon and wet leaves. She rented a white cottage near the edge of town, with ivy climbing its walls and a little path that led straight into the woods. Her plan was simple: breathe, heal, and try to remember who she had been before the world taught her how to wear armor. Their first meeting happened at the local farmer's market. Carrie had come for honey and fresh flowers. She didn't expect to lock eyes with the ghost of her teenage nightmares. "Carrie Willman?" Justin asked, his voice uncertain, a little winded, as though seeing her had knocked the air right out of him. She turned slowly, prepared to offer a polite nod, maybe a cold shoulder. But when she saw the man, not the boy, something in her faltered. He was no longer the golden god of high school lore. His hair had silver at the temples, his hands were rough, his eyes, those same blue eyes, were quieter now, humbled by life. And something else: regret. Deep, aching, genuine regret. "Justin," she said, cool but not cruel. They talked. Awkwardly at first. She asked about the farm. He asked about New York. She bought her honey and left. But the next Saturday she returned. And the next. Conversations grew longer, laughter more frequent. They were older now, weathered but wiser. She told him about the lies her ex-husband told. He told her about the nights he slept on the couch just to avoid fighting. But old wounds don't close without a scar. One evening, Carrie found an old yearbook while unpacking. There it was, her name scratched out, replaced with something cruel. Justin's handwriting. She knew it as surely as she knew her own. The next time they met, she was quiet. He noticed. "What is it?" he asked. "Do you remember calling me Scary Carrie? And writing things about me on the bathroom wall?" He didn't deny it. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and said, "Yes, remember. And I hate who I was then." Silence stretched between them like an old rope bridge. Frayed, trembling. People change, Justin. But memories, they have claws. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "I need time." He nodded. "Take all you need. I'll be here." And he was. He sent fresh flowers to her doorstep every week. Nothing fancy, just simple things. Sunflowers, daisies, wild lavender. A note always accompanied them. No words, just hope. Weeks passed. Carrie began volunteering at a local church, helping with weddings and community events. She saw Justin less often, but always felt his presence. Steady, patient, kind. One rainy morning, she slipped on wet leaves outside her cottage and twisted her ankle. The only person nearby was Justin, delivering produce to a neighbor. He carried her inside, brewed tea, wrapped her foot with practiced hands. They sat in silence until she said, "Why are you being so kind to me?" He looked at her and his voice cracked. "Because I want to become the man I should have been when we were 17. Tears welled in her eyes. But still she wasn't ready. And then came the fire. Late one night, lightning struck the old barn on Justin's property. The blaze lit up the sky like a second sunrise. Carrie heard the sirens, saw the glow, and ran. When she arrived, Justin was trying to save what he could. She screamed his name, ran into his arms, and sobbed against his chest as the barn collapsed in flame. In that moment she realized something. She had spent years building walls, and now, here in his arms, they all fell like ash. "You saved me once," she whispered. "In the woods, when I was crying after someone shoved me in the creek. You didn't say a word. Just handed me your jacket and walked away. I never forgot." He looked stunned. "I didn't think you even knew it was me." "I always knew." The morning after the fire, the town buzzed with rumors and sympathy. Willow Creek was small enough that nothing burned without hearts burning alongside it. Justin's barn was a landmark, a memory box for decades of harvest festivals, Sunday picnics, and late-night bonfires. And now it was ash. Carrie came by early with coffee and muffins. She found Justin kneeling in the soot, holding a charred horseshoe. His hands were blackened, his shirt singed, but his face was soft with thought. "I keep thinking," he said without looking up, "about what's worth saving, and what never really was." They sat in silence, steam rising from their cups. Behind them, the ruins of the barn smoked like a dying dragon. Carrie didn't speak, but reached out and rested her hand on his. A week later, the insurance agents came. Papers were signed, promises made. Justin would rebuild. But Carrie noticed a shift in him. He smiled less, spoke less, worked until the sun vanished behind the pines. She missed the flower deliveries, missed his questions, missed him. Then came the letter. It arrived tucked into her mailbox, hand-addressed and sealed with a wax stamp, a deep forest green. Inside, a single sheet of parchment, and Justin's unmistakable handwriting. "Hurry. I think I've spent my life learning how to apologize. For words I said. For words I didn't say. But you taught me something else. You taught me that forgiveness isn't just a gift you give to others. It's a gift you give to yourself. I want to rebuild not just a barn but something deeper. If you'll help me, I'll meet you at the old train station Friday at sunset. If you don't come, I'll understand. But I hope you will. Always, Justin." Carrie stared at the letter for hours. She read it in the sunlight, under a quilt of twilight, by the hum of midnight crickets. And on Friday, dressed in a simple blue dress and sandals, she went. The station was quiet, half swallowed by ivy and rust. Justin stood beneath the broken clock tower, holding 2 cups of cider. He looked up, and when he saw her, something inside him unfolded. They talked 4 hours. About their divorces. About old regrets. About how healing isn't a straight path but a broken one, full of wrong turns and small mercies. And then he kissed her. Not like the movies. Not desperate or dramatic. Just soft, honest, like a question answered. They didn't fall into each other immediately after. No whirlwind romance. They were grown. cautious, hopeful. But over time, they began weaving their lives together. Sunday dinners, Wednesday walks. They rebuilt the barn side by side. Justin taught her to plant tomatoes. Carrie taught him to waltz in the kitchen. Still, every love story faces its storm. 3 months later, Carrie received an offer from a luxury event company in Manhattan. Triple her salary, nationwide reach, her name in magazines. She hadn't applied. A former client had recommended her. Justin saw the email before she did, when they were sharing photos on her laptop. She noticed his silence. "What? It's your dream," he said quietly. "It was. It still can be." But she didn't reply. That night, sleep eluded her. She walked the woods behind the cottage, where fireflies blinked like old secrets. Could she really choose this sleepy town over the city that had once defined her? The next morning she was gone. Justin stared at the empty porch swing, the mug of coffee cooling in his hand untouched. A breeze rustled the oaks, but it brought no comfort. Carrie had left without a word, without a note, without goodbye. He hadn't tried to call. He didn't need to. He knew what silence meant. The town whispered like always. She got an offer too good to pass. Can't blame her. She's a city girl. Poor Justin. Heartbroken again. But he ignored them, burying himself in farm work. He rebuilt the barn alone, nail by nail, with nothing but the rhythm of loss in his chest. And though the structure rose again from the ashes, something inside him stayed buried. Weeks passed. Month. Then two. Carrie was everywhere and nowhere. Her name appeared in bridal magazines. Her interviews aired on morning talk shows. She stood beside gowns worth thousands, smiling, poised, perfect. But Justin could see it, even through the gloss of television. The spark in her eyes was gone. She was successful, famous even. But something essential had been left behind in Willow Creek, like breath in a cold room. And she knew it. One night, in a Manhattan hotel suite wrapped in glass and gold, she stared at the skyline and realized she hadn't touched her violin in months. It had been her escape once, in the lonely years between childhood cruelty and adult disillusionment. She opened its case and played, fingers trembling, tears falling silently. The melody that came out was not sad, but searching. That same night, in Willow Creek, Justin sat by the rebuilt barn and listened to a voicemail left weeks ago. "I don't know if this will ever reach you," Carrie's voice said, distant and raw. "But if it does, thank you for teaching me what stillness sounds like. Miss it. I miss you." He saved it, played it again and again. But pride and heartbreak are stubborn twins. Neither of them made the first move. Then came the snowstorm. South Carolina rarely saw snow, but that winter it came down in wild white sheets. Roads closed. Power flickered. Justin had to cancel deliveries and hunker down, the wind howling against the walls like ghosts at the door. On the third night there was a knock. He opened the door and there she was, Carrie. Her cheeks were red, her coat dusted with snow, her eyes bright with fear and hope all tangled together. "I thought I'd missed my chance," she said. He didn't speak. He just opened the door wider. She stepped in, trembling, soaked. He wrapped her in a blanket, made tea, and lit a fire. They sat by the hearth, watching the flames dance. "Why did you leave?" he asked softly. "Because I was scared," she whispered. "Scared that I'd traded the best version of me for the safest one. Scared of being small-town Carrie again." "You were never small," he said. "Not to me. Not anymore. I needed to know if I was still chasing someone else's idea of happiness. Turns out I was." He nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. "And now, Now I just want peace. And roots. And you. The words hung in the air like breath on cold glass. And then, he pulled her into his arms, and this time she didn't step back. They didn't speak for a long time. They didn't need to. The storm outside howled, but inside they were home. The days that followed were quiet and full of grace. They cooked together, mended fences, danced to vinyl records. Willow Creek welcomed Carrie back not as the awkward girl they once mocked, but as the woman who had gone out into the world and returned whole. And then, just when they thought peace had settled over them for good, trouble returned in the form of a man in a tailored suit. Damien Langford, her ex-husband. He arrived in town with charm in his smile and poison in his intentions. Said he was just visiting, just curious. But Carrie knew him too well. He didn't do curious. He did control. They met at the town cafe. He looked around amused. Cute place. Rustic. A little too organic for my taste. What do you want, Damien? He leaned in. I want you to come back. The press loves a reconciliation story. We could do interviews. You'd be a star. I'm already a star, she said, rising. But not in your galaxy. He caught her wrist. You really want to throw everything away for a farmer in the middle of nowhere? I'd throw away 10 cities for one moment of peace. She left him there, stunned. But she didn't tell Justin. Not yet. That night, as they shared dinner under the string lights Justin had hung from the barn, Carrie smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. Justin noticed. You okay? Just tired, she said. But inside she was rattled. Damien wasn't finished. The next morning, Justin received a letter. It was anonymous but cruel. A printed page of gossip and insinuations about Carrie's past, her clients, even her integrity. He crumpled it up, furious. But what scared him more was the doubt that crept in. He didn't want to doubt her. Not ever again. He confronted her. I got a letter. Lies, I think. I need to hear it from you. He paled. Damien. He blinked. You think he sent it? I know he did. He wants to ruin me if he can't have me. Justin took a breath. Then let him try. We'll face him. Together. And so they did. Carrie filed for a restraining order. Justin stood by her in court. The town rallied around them. The judge granted the order. Damien left town in a red-faced fury. But the cost was real. Carrie's name was dragged through online mud. Some clients backed out. Offers dried up. Yet she never wavered. Justin found her one morning painting the inside of the rebuilt barn with scripture verses. What's this for? He asked. A wedding, she said. Ours. He froze. She turned, eyes gleaming. Unless you're waiting for something more dramatic. He laughed, shook his head, and kissed her paint-smudged cheek. I was going to ask you at the spring festival, he whispered. With fireworks and bluegrass and the whole town watching. This is better, she said. This is ours. The reconstruction of the barn began in winter, just before Christmas, with the help of half the town and more casseroles than one man could ever eat. Carrie joined them. Not just with elbow grease but with a kind of quiet resolve, as if rebuilding that barn might help her rebuild parts of herself she had long abandoned. She wore flannel now. Mud on her boots didn't bother her anymore. She laughed louder, stayed longer, cried less. Then came the New Year's Eve dance at the town hall, a tradition older than both of them. Justin showed up in a navy suit that fit like an old promise. Carrie wore a soft green dress that caught every light and refused to let go. People whispered. They danced anyway. Halfway through the evening, the lights flickered. A storm was rolling in, classic Willow Creek drama. But nobody left. Not when Justin stepped on stage, cleared his throat, and called for silence. He stood with a microphone in hand, but his voice carried like a psalm. I spent the better part of my life not knowing what to do with guilt, or pain, or love. I hurt someone once, and she forgave me in a way I didn't deserve. And then I fell in love with her. Not with the girl I knew, but with the woman she became. Fierce, graceful, and kind beyond reason. Carrie Willman, I have no ring, no plan, no perfect words. I just have this. I want to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Will you let me? Silence fell like snow. Carrie stood still. And then, softly, she walked to him, her heels echoing like drumbeats in a sacred place. She reached for the mic, gently pulled it from his hand and said, "No." Gasps rose. Even the band stopped breathing. She turned to the crowd. "I don't want grand speeches. I want something real, quiet, faithful, earned. And I already have it. We've been doing it, Justin. Every flower, every silence, every pot of tea. You already asked me. And I've already said yes. With every hour we've spent together this year." Tears slipped down his cheek. She smiled. "So no, not tonight. No proposals. Just a dance. And then, forever." And that's what they did. They danced. And when midnight came, under flickering lights and a chorus of applause, they kissed. A kiss not of fireworks, but of harvest. A love that had been planted long ago, buried beneath hurt and time, had finally come to bloom. Spring returned with wild abandon. The rebuilt barn opened its doors with a celebration. The first wedding Carrie ever planned in Willow Creek. But this one was different. It was hers. She wore no veil, just wildflowers in her hair. Justin wore the same boots he worked in. They walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, through rows of neighbors and old classmates. People cried. People cheered. Even the pastor had trouble keeping his voice steady. As they said their vows beneath the sycamore tree, the one they'd carved their names into as kids, he had added a heart weeks earlier. A soft breeze passed through the leaves. Felt like blessing. And when Carrie looked into his eyes, she no longer saw the boy who once laughed at her. She saw the man who had knelt beside the ruins of his past and chosen to build something beautiful from it. And in his eyes, Justin saw the girl he once wounded become the woman who had taught him grace. No fairy tale ends here. There were still disagreements, burned dinners, restless nights. But also, morning coffee on the porch, whispered prayers before sleep, hands held through storms both literal and not. Willow Creek watched it all. And when people asked about love, they spoke of Justin and Carrie, not as perfect people, but as proof that redemption is real. That sometimes, the heart you once broke becomes the home you never knew you needed. And as the seasons turned, their love did not fade. It deepened, like roots in good earth, quiet and strong. A legacy not written in pages, but lived every day in the small and sacred things. Then, or perhaps the beginning,